Pastor Jimmy, my husband, has a girlfriend, and he comes home and changes his clothes every night, eats, and goes spends the night with his girlfriend. He got gloriously saved in my office that day. He was the best husband and father I've ever seen in my entire life. When your spouse does something that hurts you and you don't like, how are you going to respond? Let me give you the first choice. Righteously responding to our spouse in an honest, loving, and timely manner. In other words, your spouse does something that you don't like, and you walk up to him righteously and say, honey, can I talk to you for just a minute? I love you. I think you're great. We're on the same team. That bothered me when you said that. The second is receive the hurt and frustration and hide our true feelings. This is where passive-aggressive behavior comes in. In other words, you hurt me, I'm going underground. I'm going to act like everything's okay, but I'm going to start, eating potato chips in bed. I know you don't like that. I'm going to start, turning the TV up louder. I'm just going to do things that I know you don't want me to do, and I'm not going to do things I know you want me to do. And this is going to destroy our intimacy, destroy our passion, and now I'm being dishonest about how I feel because I'm going underground. Okay? Happens all the time where people do this. Number 3, reject our spouse when they hurt or frustrate us. And this is just, again, it can be overt or covert, but listen to this. Hebrews 13:5 says this. God says this. This is covenant language. I will never leave you nor forsake you. On day 1 of our relationship with God, He makes us 2 promises. He will never physically desert us, and He will never turn His heart away from us. Leave means physical, forsake means emotional. So day 1, and we're going to do some things that Jesus doesn't like. Anybody agree with that? We do every day. And so here's what God says day 1 of the relationship. You know something? I'm all in. I love you. I'm all in. I'll never leave you or forsake you. And here's what it means. There'll never be a moment in eternity where God is not focused on you emotionally. Let me say that another way. All bad things happen when you turn your heart away from your spouse. They're not meeting your needs. They're hurting you. They're saying things that you don't like. They're doing things that you don't like. And in response to that, you just reject them. And again, it can be overt where you call them names, you're angry, you're sarcastic, you just overtly put on your green zip-up jumpsuit and go in the garage and build something for 30 years. My neighbor, I used to have a neighbor did that every night, put on his green zip-up jumpsuit, and he hated his wife, and went in the garage and built something. So, what are you going to do? But understand this. All bad things in marriage happen the instant you turn your heart away. Now, you can be sitting right next to your spouse, but your heart's not there. You've turned it away. And that is very common in marriage issues, especially when you're frustrated, especially where you get to that point of, why aren't you changing? Why aren't you doing that? I'm trying here. You're not trying. And you get frustrated, you get angry, then the rejection comes. That's another choice that a lot of people make. The next is revenge to make them pay for what they've done and fear doing it again. And this is, I'm going to get you back. I'm going to make you suffer. And part of this is establishing a spirit of fear and dominance, where I'm going to dominate the relationship, and you'll either do what I say or you'll pay a high price. And that happens, again, in a lot of marriages, especially as the anger increases. Okay, well, here's number 5 choice, and that is redeem our spouse through righteous, proactive behavior. You're doing the wrong thing. I was doing the wrong thing. Jesus came. I was hurting Jesus. I killed him, in fact. I was hurting Jesus, and his response was to die for me and to suffer for me while I was in my sins. And because of that, I've come back. And I haven't just come back. There's no one I love like I love Jesus. Okay. So that's my 5th choice, and that's the only choice that works. It's the only thing. Now, so listen to my story. This girl came in to see me. This woman came in to see me, and she said, Pastor Jimmy, my husband, has a girlfriend, and he comes home and changes his clothes every night, eats, and spends the night with his girlfriend. And in the morning, he comes back and eats and changes his clothes and goes to work. That happens every day. And I said, well, I think you ought to divorce the jerk, as far as I'm concerned. She said, I love him. I want to fight for my marriage. I said, okay, well, if you want to fight for your marriage, I'll help you. I said, but don't hear me saying you need to stay in that relationship. And she said, I know. She said, but I love him and I want to work on my marriage. I said, so, okay, well, I'll give you some advice, but you don't have to take it if you don't want to. And she said, what? And I said, well, I want you to go home tonight and I want you to fix up. and I want you to fix a very, very nice meal for him. And when he comes home tonight, before he goes over to his girlfriend, I want you to treat him like you would Jesus Christ. So she goes home, and a few days later, she shows up with him. And he's got a girlfriend. He's a terrible guy. Terrible guy. So she comes in the office, and he comes in behind her, sits down in the chair, and he's real down. You know, his head is down, he's down, real dejected look. And I said, "Hey, how are you?" He said, "I know you know about me." And I said, "I do know about you." He said, "I know she's told you I've got the girlfriend and all that kind of stuff." I said, "She has told me you have a girlfriend." And he said, "Well, I don't love her." I said, "You don't love your girlfriend?" "Nah, I don't love her." He said, "I just go over there." He said, "And now she's treating me good, and that makes me feel bad." And I was thinking, well, poor you, you know. And I said, "Well, you want to change things?" And let me just give you the short version of this. He got gloriously saved in my office that day. He was the best husband and father I've ever seen in my entire life. And they were in our church for several years before they moved away. I love that man. His wife redeemed him to Jesus. You know, that old boy's a 10. And it doesn't always work that way. I mean, it's not guaranteed that because she did the right thing that he has to respond that way. But even if you don't have the response you want, it keeps you from being damaged. And you did the right thing, and God's going to honor it. Let me give you the rules of redemptive love. Number one, you can't sin even if you've been sinned against. If you sin, it's not redemptive. Jesus died for us while we were in our sins. He didn't sin. He committed no sin. That's what 1 Peter 2 says. We can't sin. 99% of marriage counseling is me listening to a person who did the wrong thing, justifying it because of what their spouse did. I know I said that to her, but let me tell you what she said. I knew I threw the remote at him, but let me tell you what he did. You know, and this is what you're hearing in marriage counseling. You can't justify this. You're just building a bigger fire. You're fighting fire with fire. You're not going to put it out until someone does the right thing. And I love this saying, the best person does the right thing first. If you're the better spouse, you'll do the right thing first and you won't justify sin. Number two, you can't use your mouth to seek revenge or to try to produce results on your own except for righteous and loving speech. It says when he was being reviled, he didn't revile in return. When Jesus was on the cross, they were just lambasting him with all kinds of insults and mocking him and all that. Jesus could have opened his mouth and destroyed all of them. But he didn't respond in kind. And the Proverbs 18 says that the power of this, Proverbs 18:21, death and life are in the power of the tongue, and those who love it will eat its fruit. Number three, you have to trust God for the results as you put your faith in him. See, marriage problems test your faith in God. They really do. The promise in 1 Peter 3 is a woman can win her husband without a word as he observes your respectful behavior. And then it says, a gentle and quiet spirit is precious in the sight of God. A gentle and quiet spirit is the spirit of a woman who has faith that God is powerful enough to change her husband. See, when I'm using redemptive behavior on Karen, the focus isn't Karen, the focus is God. I'm God's partner. And Karen's struggling, or Karen's going through something, or she did something I didn't like, or she said something I didn't like, and my tendency, and maybe I said something to her and she didn't respond the way I wanted to respond, and my tendency then is to get angry and to go underground or to reject her or turn my heart away and put on my green zip-up jumpsuit or something like that. What redemptive love says is, no, I'm going to fight for her. I'm not turning my heart away. And I'm going to love her the way Jesus loved me when I was in my sins. And what I'm believing is, as I do that, she's going to come back around. It works every single time. Not maybe in 2 hours, but it'll work. And what happens is the relationship gets stronger and stronger. It just becomes a natural instinct that when something bad happens, you don't do the wrong thing, you do the right thing. And God honors that. You fall more in love than you've ever fallen before just simply because it works. And here's rule number 4. You have to be willing to do the right thing for someone who's doing you wrong. You have to meet their needs when they're not meeting yours. And that's real hard for some people. You have to be willing to bless them while they're cursing you and pursue them while they're ignoring you. But the focus isn't you. The focus is my great God and how big he is to change your heart. And when he's changing your heart, you have somebody to come back to. I'm not angry. I'm not your enemy. I'm not bitter. I'm not going to talk down to you. I love you.